Relativity.
Hey, this is Lee Shackelford, creator of Relativity, not of the whole phenomenon of relativity as it exists, of course, but that's above my pay grade, but of the Relativity podcast, the radio serial. And because we are in pre-production for the next season, I am filling this time and hoping to provide our loyal listeners with some interesting content by talking with folks who have responded positively to the show and are themselves creators of radio drama or podcast audio fiction. Tonight, it is my honor. I'm clutching my heart as I say this. To talk to Shannon Perry, who's laughing in the background. So I don't have to say, Shannon, are you there?
I am. I am chortling even.
How do you? Yes, we were just talking about. Do I understand right that Lewis Carroll coined that word?
Is that right?
I believe that he gave us the word chortle.
It seems very Lewis Carroll.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely something you would do beyond the looking glass.
Shannon Perry is not a name you may know, but faithful listener, but you may know the name of the hilarious podcast outer space adventure called Oz 9, of which Shannon is, I think, the creator. Is that a fair word to say?
Yes.
It was your maniac
the originator.
Idea.
Yes.
The originator. and she's brought together a team, an ensemble of extraordinary talent who tickle our funny bones in outer space.
Fortnightly.
Fortnightly, yes.
Fortnightly.
And because only a mad person would try to get these out once a week, which is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that fascinates me about Oz 9 is that we seem to cover a lot of the same ground, which is, since my show is serious, if not grim, and Oz 9 is, shall we say, silly?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is decidedly silly.
It's amazing how often we get into the same place. But anyway, have you got a practiced pitch line, Shannon? How do you, if you're trying to sell somebody we'll assume that people don't know what the hell I'm talking about. How do you tell them about it?
You'd think I would be able to answer that question relatively easily, but
I don't have one either. So
yeah, we are on a ship of quietly disintegrating rich people, and it's staffed by a bunch of ex-cons. Well, cons of the sort of lightweight variety, shoplifter type. Right. So, heading to a new planet, basically having been cleansed off of Earth. Yes. A loaded term, but yeah.
Yes.
Excused. We've been excused.
They've been excused. Right.
So, yes.
The line from Pride and Prejudice that my wife and I are always saying is, "You've delighted us long enough."
Yes, thank you, dear. You've delighted us long enough.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So, that's funny. I'm having demolition done at my house, and because we just had a flood come through here. Oof. And but I'm hearing things falling down and crashing at your house, which is...
That would be our ice machine.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
We have the world's loudest ice machine.
Do you live in an hotel?
Welcome to the House of Whimsy. We've decided it's a whimsical ice machine.
Shannon's House of Whimsy.
It's Shannon's House of Whimsy. Whimsy is serious business. That is basically my tagline for life.
Well, that puts you with Oscar Wilde, and you can't go wrong with that, I guess. So.
Perfect. Did I steal that from him? Oh, nuts.
I don't know. That's close to the subtitle for The Importance of Being Earnest, which I can't quite remember, but it's something like that. But in theory, these conversations are to talk about relativity, but I also hope to talk a lot about Oz 9 as well. So I'm going to get the masthead stuff out of the way first. These interview episodes need to include a spoiler warning, because we'll probably talk about things that have happened up to episode 40 in Relativity. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now.
Spoilers.
Okay, there it is. And here's the other thing, and I said this when we were talking with our dear friend David S. Deere, that I do have the next 10 episodes plotted, and I can show them to anybody if they want. But so by asking people to perhaps theorize about what's going to happen next, I'm getting into this weird territory with fellow creators of perhaps sounding like I'm stealing their ideas, which I'm not, or
I
perhaps
can assure
having
you, there is no danger here.
you're not going
I'm
to.
not going to say anything you're going to
Okay.
want.
All right.
So I think
Well,
we're in the clear.
here's one thing I got to tell you right up front, Shannon, is that I know that we're both huge fans of Douglas Adams. It's all over Oz 9 in a really good way, a way that I enjoy always. And since the episode that we just cliffhangered on Relativity was episode 40, when I sat down to write this next batch, one of the things I realized was that I'm writing episode 42.
Mm-hmm.
And since my show is not a comedy show, I was wondering to what extent can I load it with references to Hitchhiker without
As long
crossing
as
the line?
is Chris able to have a towel drift by
Mm,
or
absolutely. Yeah, that's it. All it has to be is a towel, right?
literally all it has to be is a towel.
Yeah. So that's
Douglas Adams fans will recognize it instantly.
if nothing else, I think you'll get the references I'm making anyway.
Oh yeah.
But,
Huge Douglas Adams fan. So
what do you suppose it is? What is it about Adams?
for me, Douglas Adams has the most truly original mind, I think, in fiction. His perception of the universe, his perception of humanity's place in it, his ideas of his whimsy. I mean, he's just utterly unique. And when I was a kid and first discovered him while living in small town Illinois, it was just this expansion of my own personal skies, sort of thing. So
Yeah. It does kind of blow the lid off everything, and you.
it was a new way of looking at the world. It was just that adults could be goofy and silly. And I grew up, the very first show I remember seeing, and my parents will be horrified if they ever hear this, but the very first television show I ever remember seeing was Monty Python's Flying Circus, which probably tells you.
Nobody will listen to this. It's okay.
Good, because Prudence would not approve. But, so, that sensibility, that humor,
Yes.
that goofiness has always been just fundamental to the things I need from the universe. And Douglas Adams was just, there was that sustained cleverness and that wonderful use of language. He's incredibly playful with language. It's just, He's magical. He is magical. I even have a short story floating around somewhere that I someday will finish writing about a woman who is haunted by Douglas Adams. And he just keeps leaving half cups of tea around her apartment and, things like that. So
What a lovely idea. Oh, yeah. Come inhabit my house, Douglas.
Exactly.
Wherever you are.
Exactly. So I have some questions for you, though.
By all means.
All right. So can I start with my first question?
Yes.
So this is one of the things I ran up against in writing my own script, because I know that you plot out your storyline, at least to a certain extent. You kind of know where you're headed.
I'm a big plotter. Yeah.
That's awesome. I am a pantser.
Yes.
So
we know Girl in Space. We know
exactly.
she teaches about the plotters and the pantsers.
Yep. And
pantser not having that may sound vulgar. We're talking about the World War I pilot idea of flying by the seat of your pants.
Yep. I am of that ilk.
Okay.
So I'm curious, what is the time frame that we have seen so far?
I have been being really elastic with time, and it makes me wish that I had sort of sat down from the very beginning and figured everything out, because every now and then I want to say, I've been worrying about this for, how long has it been?
Right.
Because at least originally the show, there were never any lapses of time. So 15 minutes would pass in an episode, and the next episode was literally the next 15 minutes. Right. So this would go on for a month, and I would say, we're still in the same day. It's still the same day that this explosion happened, Exactly. So I've been able to fudge that, but I'm still not sure how much time has passed on board the ship. It hasn't been long.
Right. And I guess in Chris's terms, it doesn't really matter. There is that relativity compensator, which makes everything, which allows for elasticity. I mean, this is
Yes.
kind of, which I think is extremely clever. But
Yeah.
I was just curious how much time has passed, because
it can't be more than a couple of weeks total from the beginning of the whole nightmare.
Right, which makes the growth of the characters even that much more impressive, because it feels organic. It
That's
feels
good.
utterly organic. And yet you realize it's in this very contracted period of time, and it works. Their relationship evolves, they evolve, it's amazing. The story evolves.
That's marvelous. And I think of it as being in the way I've made the show and the way I've listened to it myself was, 1 week at a time. And so then enough episodes got out there where people started binging it. And that was honestly not something I had thought about before. So I've been trying to think, what would that be like to listen to all these conversations as if they were one huge conversation? And would it be credible that this much change is taking place over this
Well,
period of time?
right. From a binger's perspective, I can tell you that it works.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it
Wow.
really.
Oh, I totally planned that. Is what I mean.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So my second question was, there are these moments when Sophia kind of breaks. Now, Sophia seems she's very controlled, she's very contained, she's very measured. And then she builds and builds and builds and then breaks. And those breaks when she shows that emotion, like when she actually cries a couple times, like those are so powerful, and that actress is amazing.
Yeah.
What I'm curious about is, how do you as a writer know that you have reached her breaking point? Like, do you just feel it? Is there some sensibility about it? How do you know?
Wow, what an outstanding question. It does feel like a sixth sense, and part of it is because the I think it would be tempting for people to assume that the character in this show who is like me is Chris. And I guess there's aspects, but really my voice in the show is Sophia. And I just wanted to flip the genders to be perverse and to do something I hadn't done before. But that is a lot more who I tend to be. I tend to keep things crammed down to say, listen, I just got to know what the facts are. Just tell me what I'm dealing with right now, and then I'll go away somewhere and break down. And so I feel like I know how that works. And I also know, as somebody who's been in therapy for years, how did this get so confessional? That's not healthy. What she's doing that's not good. We understand in her backstory why she is living her life that way. It has worked for her, but it can't work forever. She can't keep doing that. She's going to explode. Or have some kind of a breakdown.
Right.
So does that feel right to you?
It does. I mean, she has these little steam vents moments, where she gets to release a little bit, but you can hear her clamp it back down. Like, I will let this go, and now I'm done, and I'm going to clamp that back down. And even though I haven't released all the steam, and eventually the lava will follow, it feels very like you can almost say, and there she goes, right?
Right.
Clamping it back down.
Oh, that's great, because I want it to be clear that there's a pattern at work there. The other thing is that I know Elena so well. She's a former student of mine. I've known her for years, and she and I it's almost telepathic. I write things and I hear her voice in my head as I'm writing, and I send them to her in Hollywood. And she records them in her little studio, and by God, they come back exactly the way I envisioned these lines of dialogue.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, do you ever have that? Do you often have that experience? Do you?
Well, we do our recording all together.
Yeah.
So most of us are here in Seattle, and then we Skype in 2 from Chicago and 1 from Austin. Our Jesse, Bonnie Brantley, is in Austin, and Aaron and June, our 2 assassins, are in Chicago. And so we're all present. Yes, our 2 assassins, because we have extras.
Insert Chicago joke here, yeah.
Actually, not Chicago. Sorry, Champaign-Urbana.
Okay, that's even worse.
I know, crazy. But so we Skype them in. So we're all actually
in Illinois.
And they never ran for governor. Did I say? We might have to nix that.
Yeah. I bet their
Sorry.
dead relatives voted in the last election, though.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
Not
Moving right
adding to the
along.
FBI file or anything, along with my browser history.
That's right.
So yeah, we don't have that experience. Well, that's not entirely true. We do a read through and then we do the recording together, and then occasionally my remotes will say, "I didn't really like how I read that line, so I'll send you extra, new versions," and they are spot on every time. So,
Yeah.
but we always have that experience of sharing the moment first. And I mean, I think you actually direct, and I'd be curious to hear about that because I don't. I'll be like, "Yeah, you kind of said that wrong, or you missed a line," but that's like the extent of my direction. And fortunately, my cast, they don't need it. But how do you handle that?
I stay out of Elena's way, honest to God. I just
Yeah.
let her do what she's going to do. Stephanie and Clarence, I I have the opportunity. I usually record live with them, and I have the opportunity to say, "Let's try that again,"
Mm-hmm.
with maybe, you know. But usually it's just let's that I would be glad to keep that take. Let's try something else just because we can, you know.
Nice. Right.
Um, and yeah, and myself, I know that I'm often saying something, and I will hear it in my headphones and say, "Haha, let's do that again, shall we?"
Yeah.
um, so
Yeah.
so you're often directing yourself as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny. We have a lot of very slippery, slidey accents. So.
Well, that's this is. I'm so glad you brought that up because one of the things I wanted to say was that if there's something that has come, the closest I've gotten to getting negative feedback about relativity, and I want to be clear in case Elena and Stephanie hear this, that nobody has criticized the accents that we hear from Marta or Sophia, but
Mm-hmm.
they have asked, they have said, are you trying to be funny with the ethnic accents or what? Elena
Really?
did something that was in Italian once, and somebody said that was kind of cartoon Italian. Was that deliberate? I thought, hey, Elena speaks this language. I no, but you know how everybody hears things differently and so on.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
and Marta's accent is broad, and we have a sort of in canon explanation for that I think makes sense. And
Mm-hmm.
I know German women who talk exactly like this.
Right.
Um, but I was thinking, if we're going to get criticized or even questions about broad ethnic stereotypes, I wanted to say, have you heard Oz 9 perhaps? I'd like to introduce you to a show, maybe to
Tee.
piggies. uh,
Yes. We are basically, yeah.
but again, that's Monty Python, isn't it? That's,
It is. It
yeah.
is. In fact, the actor Aaron, who plays Le Bichon Frise or Frise more properly,
Yes,
um, it said he based it on the guy in Holy Grail.
exactly.
Yeah,
It's John Cleese on the
it is
battlement. Yeah,
exactly.
nice.
At some point, we'll have to bring in the word elderberries. I think,
Exactly.
just in case
And
anybody's missed it.
hamsters. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, it's. But how do you cast? And are these the kinds of questions that are these good questions?
These are
'Cause these are the
outstanding
things I'm curious about.
questions.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
fabulous. Yeah, and I
Yeah,
know
because I want to go back to the story, but I also want to talk
you
about
were
this.
feeling intimidated about asking questions about science, I think, and yeah, I should tell you, I have always been interested in writing science fiction and fantasy, and always loved the idea. An interview with Gene Roddenberry that I had read as a
Mm.
very young man, where he was saying that to me the science is not as important as the story, and to me that was a revelation. I really somehow had the idea that Star Trek. I was very young. I thought it needed to be about science and not about people, which I now realize is ridiculous. And then I got an opportunity to actually pitch and contribute some ideas to Next Generation. So I had the
Oh,
writer's
wow.
manual, and the writer's manual says on page 1, this is not a science fiction show about science. This is a science fiction show about people. So
That's I love that
isn't that
because
wonderful?
it's awesome because I will never write The Martian.
No, that's right. That's a huge commitment, that kind of hard
Mhm.
science. Yeah.
Yeah.
But next generation, I could take to like a duck to water because they said, look, if we need an explanation for something, we will effing make it up because it doesn't matter. And they're examples of this that I just completely loved. I just you don't expect to open a writer's guide and start laughing. But they said, look, in the first season of Next Generation, somebody refers to an element inside the ship's hull as selenium. Well, in the script, if you look at it, the word selenium is literally the word meaningless spelled backwards.
Oh, that's awesome.
It doesn't matter what that thing in this hull of the ship does is whatever we say it does. Let's
Right.
move on. You know.
The
Um,
magic of science fiction.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But
yeah.
yours, I mean, yours is genuinely science-y. I mean, even if it's not entirely factual, it mimics the science beautifully.
At
Like
least
I am
yeah.
completely convinced.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, I do. I realize that it's not. Nobody would call it hard SF. This isn't Arthur C. Clarke.
Hmm.
But but I do love Clarke and Asimov and other people who really wanted to write hard SF, and I wanted everything in Relativity to at least be credible.
Hmm.
And if nothing else, because I always had this idea of these voices that people are going to start hearing, and if you establish the background in the story that everything does have a logical explanation, that when something like that happens, the audience has to say, "Huh?
Hmm.
Where is that coming from?" If you so you
Yep.
know, but
Yeah, it's a
that's
little. We were talking about this the other day, Richard and I, about how if you're reading a murder mystery and the piece that solves the puzzle you're not given at some point along the way,
mm,
you feel cheated. Like that's not
yes,
a real murder
that's
mystery.
the
I could not have
biggest cheat there
solved that.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't bring in an extra nephew at the very end and tell me
No,
that's the key piece. Like that's not fair. And so but I feel like you've definitely covered that. There all the pieces are there. I may not see the pattern yet, but they're all there.
it's all there.
It's all there.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we just blow stuff up. If we need something, we blow something up. Whatever.
Or lock everybody in the closet until the air runs out.
We have a tendency to have breathing things going on the
Yeah.
ship.
Well, you're in space, man. It's what happened.
It is. There you go. So, kind of next question, and I'm glad you did the spoiler thing because I want to ask you about the "you must remain connected."
Mm,
That feels very E.M. Forster to me. That whole idea of
mm.
connection is the key.
Ah,
Um, yeah, because I always think of Passage to India. You
ready.
know,
Yeah.
the
Have been compared favorably to E.M. Forster. Good.
you've been compared favorably to everybody. I
Yeah.
love your show. So I'm
Putting that on my
curious.
business cards now. I'm good. Leaf Software have been compared favorably to E.M. Forster.
So I'm just curious, like that idea of connection, because Chris is rapidly moving away from the possibility of connection, and how is that something he's had an opportunity to really think about yet, or is he so caught up in this moment of ensuring his own survival, figuring out what's going to happen to this mission, and how committed he is to this mission as it is? Like, has that coming loss of connection even really crossed his radar yet?
Oh, you mean because
I mean, obviously it has, but I wonder how much he's thought about, I am going to be severing this connection to Sophia at some
yeah,
point.
yeah. But that's again, what a spectacular question. I'm so glad you're conducting this interview because your
Sorry, can
questions
I
are
take
so
over?
and yeah, you saved my butt. Is what you did. Um, yeah, I, it's an outstanding question. I really think he has not thought it all out. I think this is well, they always say if somebody is in a drama is running, they're either running to something or they're running away from something,
Mm.
and he's running away.
Hmm.
And he did not expect to be doing it alone, but he is. So that's just how it is. But where he's going, I don't think he's really thought this all out. And really, that's bit of an advanced peek. But one of the first things we're dealing with in this next season that I'm writing now is Marcus and Sophia telling him, "Look, we've got the telemetry on your ship. I don't see how this is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
We can't tell you what to do.
Right.
We can't turn the ship around from here without your help. But dude, 15 years." At the end of which time you're going to break out of the relativity bubble, and it's going to be 90 years in the future. Or no, I actually had to get a time dilation calculator to get this. At the end of his 20-year trip, 50 years will have passed on the Earth.
Wow.
So by the time when he jumps out of the compensator field, 30 years will instantly pass on Earth from his point of view.
Right.
So you're right. If there's connection, he's about to sever it. Well, he'll sever it years from now.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't think he's thought it out. And here are these voices demanding that you remain connected. But what is that? So that sounds like you have a very specific idea of what that means.
I don't. I mean, I don't. This whole notion of this guy traveling alone in space for this vast period of time is absolutely fascinating to me, because of course you put yourself in Chris's shoes and say, what would I do in that case? Would I follow the captain and step out into space?
Yeah.
At some point, would I be able to be in my own head for 15 years with just this very tenuous connection via a comms unit for as long as that lasts, because who knows at what point that's going to suddenly go away. And it could go away at any time. I mean, how fragile that must feel. So I'm fascinated by Chris, his position that he's in, and the idea that, okay, when the immediate crises are suddenly over, and now we're in day to day, how does that going to work? I mean, you can avoid these issues when you're trying to just survive, and you've got to go step outside the ship to see what the explosion was and fix things, and there's there are all these things that need to be done right now in the moment. But what happens when that's done?
As long as the crises continue, we'll be okay.
Exactly.
20 years.
Yeah, 20 years full of crises, so that's a lot of cortisol.
Well, yeah, that can't be good for you.
I'm tired. I'm
You'll
really
be 90 years old when you're like.
Seriously.
But it's one of the things. The actor who played Peter Miblin and I were talking about this. That we're both huge fans of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and one of the things that we love about that is Kubrick's depiction of the banality of day-to-day life on board a long space mission, about sort of running in circles and playing chess with the robot and yep.
Yeah, lots of banality and moments of sheer terror.
That's it. So. Interrupted by the occasional. At least on Oz 9, things are never dull.
No. That's partly why I was asking you about the time thing, because I forgot to have them go to bed. Whoops.
I see. Yeah.
Like several episodes in, it was like, oh, they should probably sleep at some point.
It's a little too late for that now.
Yeah. Oh
well. No, you can do a whole story about massive sleep deprivation and what that does to people who have literally forgotten to go to sleep. So.
If anybody could do it, it would be this bunch. But so I'm curious about how far. Like, Chris seems to deal with things. He's very impetuous, obviously. He's in the moment of the moment, which is fabulous. He also has this wonderful sense of humor. Like, there is a lightness about Chris that is missing, that Sophia doesn't necessarily share. And there's the one brief time when he admits he has to go to the bathroom, and they kind of share a laugh, but you really don't hear Sophia laugh very much.
No.
And granted, she's in a pretty grim situation on Earth with the things that are happening there, so that is understandable. But it's just curious that Chris manages to maintain that sense of humor. And maybe that's out of sheer desperation, But what are your thoughts?
And it's not. This is the case where that character just talks the way I do, because that's my sense of humor exactly. I mean, like I say, we just had a flood coming through the house, and my wife tells me I've been freaking hilarious today. You know, I mean, our world is literally, washing out into the yard, and
Oh no.
but you know,
Sorry.
I guess you laugh or you cry, and I think I'd always rather laugh.
Yep.
And sometimes, people do stare at me and go, "You realize this is not the time or the place, don't you? You know." So
Which makes it exactly the time and the place.
That's right. I good. That's why I'm doing this. You get it? Yeah. So yeah, I even recognize that about myself. There's when Sophia was trying to get her mother to wake up, after she'd taken all the knockout drops, and Chris said, I'd come help you, except I'm 720 trillion miles from your house. And Sophia says, this is not the time.
Yep.
So yeah, that just seems to me like what? Yeah.
It's a coping mechanism,
well,
and
right,
it's
right,
totally understandable one.
And I don't think I thought that out consciously until David Astier mentioned that when we were talking last week, and he said that he appreciates the fact that this is Chris's coping mechanism, that he doesn't always scream and beat his head against the wall, although he does that sometimes too.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it's making wry, dark jokes.
So my next question is, Chris is the ship's doctor.
Yeah.
And therefore the one most committed to and engaged with helping them continue to live, which suddenly has not happened.
Yes.
So my question to you is, does that affect Chris, knowing that, does he feel like he has failed them, even though there was obviously nothing he could have done?
Yeah, I think it has to. And maybe we haven't said that expressly. That's something to think about, because if nothing else, he knows he's out of a job.
Right.
And that's not,
Yeah.
So and he was the last person on board, and he isn't properly trained. We've said that from the beginning.
Right.
So the only person left on the ship now is the least capable person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that gets to him more than.
Yeah. Well, and his one function has been taken away.
Right. Yeah. The one thing he was good at.
Right. I've got one job on this ship.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
stupid.
But I let everybody else die. So I think I was hoping that this is part of the joy of being able to help Sophia and Marta.
Yes.
By radio, and say, look, let me do this. This is what I do.
This is what I do. This is what I can do.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is fascinating about both of our shows is that both of us have problematic robots and artificial intelligence, which is a favorite theme of Adam's.
Yes.
Real people personalities.
Right.
Is a really grim joke. So really, you want somebody that acts like a person? Is that really what you want? Because, life.
Yeah, I even thought about having a door say something at one point, and I thought, no, it's pushing it a little far.
Well, that's it. You can't be too on the nose, right?
Yeah. But I think there's something very fascinating about this idea of you, and I don't know, maybe this is a little too religious based, but this idea that there is this very powerful consciousness that isn't entirely trustworthy.
Right.
And can mess with you in very, dramatic and unpleasant ways. And Olivia even does bolts of bolts of electricity.
Yes.
How
Yes, Olivia will cut you. Yeah.
She will cut you.
Yeah.
She will take you out.
Yeah.
Never mind sounding like a Dickensian orphan.
That's right. Yes.
She will take you down. But
right.
there's something so fascinating in this idea of having a character who has this much virtually unmitigated power and is a little whimsical herself. So I think that's it's an interesting, is it a child's perspective of a parent? I don't know. I don't know where that comes from. There's probably some deep psychological reason for doing it that way, but it's an interesting dichotomy to play with.
There must be, because I was talking with the Mission from Zix guys at a convention recently, and they've observed this too, that there's so much science fiction, outer space, podcast fiction out there right now, and we've all got a problematic AI on board. And is it just 2001, or is it? Because I think you're right. I think there's a larger reason for this. We are talking about something else. Is it the parent who we learned later we can't trust?
That is fallible after all. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it about some of our, many people's complicated religious feelings, or, because if you're on a ship like in 2001 or on Relativity, the ship is the AI is the ship.
Right.
And yeah, and if she wants to put something in your food, she can.
Absolutely. And then on the other hand, if you had a perfect AI, it would almost make the storytelling too easy.
Well,
that they could solve all your problems and everything would go perfectly and there's no conflict.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I yeah.
They're a little too Deus Ex Machina or something.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe quite literally, but yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's true. It's just boring if they're perfect.
Yeah, it is, and it's much more interesting to make them problematic.
Yeah.
So, and I haven't, and that's an interesting conversation for you, because how problematic are they?
Right.
Are they deeply untrustworthy, a la Hal? Are they mostly benevolent? Are they somewhere in between? It's, Olivia is very changeable, and her loyalties are unclear most of the time.
except where Lead is concerned.
Except for Lead.
But giving robots animal passion is always interesting to me. It's just a fun idea. Of all things.
And we started out with her when we were making the cartoon characters that go with each, the visuals, and we told our artist, to make her a Dickensian looking orphan, right? Yeah. And then he made her really young, and we thought, oh no, because suddenly her lead thing gets really creepy, completely inappropriate. Yes. So we made her older.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we need to age her up a little bit. This is just wrong. So. The things you don't think of,
Oh, that's right. Yeah. No, well, yeah. Well, points to you for catching that and saying,
this is awkward.
Let's rethink that. Yeah. Well, and yeah, talking about other unreliable robots and things on the ship, is that you've got a character with two heads, which is, if that isn't Douglas Adams' shout out, I don't know what is. Because
he is, yeah.
Because I always love the fact that because Hitchhiker started as a radio show, I mean, I'm sure that's the only reason in the world why Zaphod has two heads, because it's a radio show and you can do anything you want.
Yep.
And it's not until doing the TV show that they have to wrestle with the problem of actually trying to figure out how to do that.
Trying to figure out how to make that work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a little bit the two-headed giant in Python as well.
Yes.
Because I love this idea of these two heads that are they have to make it work together. They're stuck with each other.
Yeah.
And they can be very different personalities, but they have to, and mine, they don't even synchronize how they walk. Like,
yes.
That's not done for them. They each have to individually move their leg. Talk about a design flaw.
Yes. But a sound design joke that is a glory to listen to. There's not a lot of sound design, that just brings a laugh. But oh God, these guys really cannot get it together. Can't walk down the corridor.
Yes. That was very fun to play with. So I realize I'm jumping you on topics here. Sorry about that. No. But I realize I left out probably my key question that I wanted to make sure I asked. We don't know a lot of Chris's backstory.
Yeah.
Is that coming? Is that something you can share a little bit of?
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's been deliberate, that he does not, that we're learning all this stuff about Sophia's family. He does not talk about his family. And it's not because there's a secret. It's just because it's painful. And yeah, it's coming.
Excellent.
And well, I don't know. I shouldn't say more, but yeah. But
It's just it's interesting that Chris is so open in so many ways, or
yeah,
he seems to be. I think it is almost more subterfuge than real. Like I feel like he seems to reveal a lot. He seems very open. He seems very giving of information and sharing, and he shares his emotions quite freely. And yet there is so much that he keeps to himself.
yeah.
That's not even hinted at. Sophia gives herself away occasionally
Hmm. Yeah.
because, like we said, she has those little steam vents, and she gives herself away when she gets to that point and has to release. Chris
Yeah.
doesn't get to that.
Then she says, "Oops." Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's a lot of apologizing
Yeah.
and fleeing, and we're not going to talk about that. But
And
yeah,
she does
Chris
get to
just
go home. We've met her mother, and we've heard all about her father and her sister, and yeah.
right,
So,
right.
yeah. But
Yeah, Chris just never gets to the point where he is forced to reveal anything,
yeah.
which is very interesting, and not in any kind of sneaky or underhanded way. He just is careful, I think.
Well, and all we know is that he left the earth because there was no reason to stay.
Right.
And that probably suggests a lot, but, I guess a lot of people would say that. Like, I might as well.
All right.
Um, yeah, cool question, though.
Yeah, I'm very curious to learn more about him. He's a very intriguing character. I mean, obviously, but because who signs up for a 20-year voyage away from Earth on a whim?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There's got to be something that, yeah, like I say, everybody's either going somewhere, they're running away from something. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. He shot a man in Reno just to watch him die.
But he did
That's,
not shoot the deputy.
he did not shoot the deputy.
It's double tap people.
Whee! Ah, that's fun. Yeah, this may be my series of interviews in which all of us give away how old we are as we talk along. There's so many interesting traveling in space shows right now. I had the mad idea when I started that I was the only one, and yeah, so it's been such fun to discover. Help me out here. Oz9 and Moonbase Theta Out. I guess you'd say they're on the moon.
Yep. Girl in space.
Girl in Space, of course. ARCA
Yep.
45672.
Yep. We fix space junk.
Tendril, the Banshee Chronicles of
Oblivity.
yeah, Starship Iris. Yeah, on and on and on it
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah. And all good stuff. There's such,
Yeah.
and it's amazing that it's such well-tread space, so to speak, and yet each show is very unique.
Well, that's it. That's what I was going to say. How is it that we're not stepping on each other's toes? But I really
Yeah.
don't. It's amazing.
It's fairly stunning. And the really cool thing about it, the thing I love, I think more than almost anything, is that we are very much the rising tide that lifts all spaceships. Like everybody talks about each other's shows.
Oh yeah.
And it's not like we're dividing and fighting over an audience. We're sharing the same audience. People who like Moonbase Theta Out like Relativity, and and they just kind of move through our lists.
That's right.
Which is great.
Yeah, that's it. We seem to we really should form a network, I guess, because what we're doing is because you're right. People who like one of our shows seem to like them all, and that's awesome.
It really is.
It is awesome. So, I'm such a fan of your writing and work that I'm a little surprised that you've come up with great questions to ask me, and I'm just stuck on things that I wanted to ask you, except about atoms. And well, I do remember my big question is, do you? I think I already know the answer to this. Do you have an end point planned for Oz9? No, this is not going anywhere.
No, it's ridiculous. You and David were talking about driving toward an endpoint, and David,
Yeah.
it sounds like is definitely a plotter. Like he's such a great storyteller. I just love his show, but I can't write that way. Like if I know the ending, then I suddenly start forcing everybody towards it.
Yeah.
And forcing the story towards it, and it becomes very mechanical and it's very obvious. And so I tend to just write. And literally last week I was writing on Thursday what we recorded on Friday. So here's where the comparison to Douglas Adams ends. Like I'm literally
Oh,
throwing it under their noses as they're speaking virtually. So that much at least I share in common with DNA. But
oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to say, no, my understanding was he was exactly like that. Okay, yeah.
yes,
All right, okay.
yes,
Yeah.
that's the one thing I have with him is that we are both really bad at getting stuff done ahead of time. Um, So my cast is wonderful. They are totally good with it. I'll throw a random character with a new accent under their nose, like literally the day of recording, and they're frantically YouTubing Minnesota accents to try and figure out how to do that. Which is ridiculous. But it is very much I write that way, and I am envious of people who don't. I have to say, when they have it all worked out and they can release it in this nice every 2 weeks and it comes out every 2 weeks or every week or whatever and it's all
Yeah.
produced and it's beautiful and there's no stress. It's like,
Yeah.
nah.
Well, it's probably a different stress, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm sure.
Well,
I'm sure, but
I, mm,
it seems calmer.
yeah, but I so admire it, and it's one of the things I really think about that works about Oz 9 is that it always feels fresh. It always feels like we're just sort of lunging forward, not quite knowing what's going to, if we're all going to land on our faces or not. And
That's
so,
awesome.
so the forward motion, you could feel it. It's tangible there. It's just, and so then when a
Lunge in the
surprise
dark.
comes in, well, yeah, I and I started out trying to be cute with episode titles, but if we're going to have a contest of cute episode titles, you win because I
Thank you. Bowing a little bit.
well
Uh,
people I mean like people are making their own T-shirts that say things like "We are not breathing the passengers" and stuff like that. So I mean, they become catchphrases in our little community.
okay, I have to say, writer to writer, this is like the thing that gets me most of all, and I'm sure you've experienced this, is when someone quotes you back to you.
Oh yeah,
Man, that's weird.
oh
It's
yeah,
awesome, but it is so weird. People are
this
constantly saying to me now, it's not my fault.
yeah
I love it. Say it to me
yeah.
all the time. Like, I think that is absolutely fantastic, but it's so odd.
Oh, right, yeah. Oh,
It's
yeah.
just, you know?
No, I had somebody walk up behind me at an event and whisper behind me, "You must remain connected." Yeah, which is a little creepy and stalkery,
Yeah,
but
but that
yeah,
is
but
super cool.
still, it was awesome because I mean, if I hadn't been wearing my Relativity T-shirt, it would have just been weird. But yeah,
Yeah, true.
uh,
But that's awesome. And well deserved. Your show is brilliant. It really is great.
thank you
Yeah,
so much.
Chris Lee.
Yeah, right. Yeah, when we're
So,
hearing each other's voices, yeah, what? So. Do you now? Somebody else in the cast has the same last name as you. I don't want to make assumptions there about
my
the
brother.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, but you also have a spouse who's involved in this too.
boyfriend.
Yes.
Yes,
Boyfriend. Okay.
partner. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Because yeah, and I was trying to parse
It's
that out
very good.
just because one of them was responding for you in the chat the other day, and I thought that's not this. Okay.
Yeah,
So
we
I'm
should probably make that clear.
trying to get the relationships figured out, but yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Eric is my brother. It's
but
funny how the assemblage of our cast has been a little nutty, but appropriately so. So
it's a fabulous group of performers, and I
been
the
very fortunate.
virtuosity of all these voices when you're throwing dialects at them in a short period of time is really impressive.
Well, this whole thing came about, and I'd love to hear your origin story as well. But it came about because there's not a whole lot of avenue for creativity for people to actually get something out. You write short stories and you can't get them published. You write a film script and you can't get it made. There's not that much opportunity. YouTube videos, yes, but there's just it's difficult to find a channel where you can get your creativity, where you have an outlet for that. And so as a frustrated writer, I knew a lot of people who did voice acting or acting of different varieties who could use an outlet and just for the fun of it, not to necessarily make a career out of it or to make any money out of it, but just to have that opportunity to perform and do this thing that they love. And radio, this podcast world, is so perfect for that, because it is an outlet that we have access to with fairly limited resources. It doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take a huge amount of equipment. although it's nice if you have those things, obviously. But the barriers to entry are so much lower than they are for virtually any other forum. And that's amazing.
You may notice I'm just letting you talk in the clear.
Oh,
And
dear.
I'm not talking over you because that was so brilliant and you put so perfectly. If you're asking me why did I do what I'm doing? For exactly that reason. And you're putting it so well. I'm just going to isolate this part and we'll make it a commercial. We'll just put it out there. Because I haven't talked to anybody who does this who doesn't struggle to express the same idea. I mean, imagine making a film of Oz 9. What? Maybe an animated feature, but a live action film of that. What? For one thing, it would ruin it, I think, and also it would be, and it would cost $175 billion. I mean, somebody asked me in all seriousness, "Hey, you ever think of making a video version of Relativity?" I go, "Yeah, let's just do that. Yeah, get your checkbook out."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
But yeah, you and I can say, well, we're on a spaceship hurtling away from the Earth, and part of our ship just fell off. Sorry, Switzerland.
Sweden. It's an
Sweden.
eighth of
Sorry,
Sweden.
yes. Okay. Sorry,
That's funny
Sweden.
that you know that.
Yeah, it's we could say that, and everybody visualizes it, and we didn't have to build it.
It's an amazing medium. It really is. I mean, I can't draw. I have a face for radio, so this is for people who are word people like us.
Yeah, right.
This is the best medium because and I'm a huge reader, obviously, most of us probably are.
Sure.
But to me, podcasting has very much that same mental space where I get to build that picture in my mind.
Yes.
It's that same engagement that you get from reading a book.
Yes.
That you don't necessarily get from someone reading a book to you.
No, it's interesting that that's not the same.
Yeah.
And I've puzzled over that for a long time. But I'm very fortunate to have had parents who wanted to make sure that I, growing up in the early 60s, heard the radio shows that they grew up with. So they had recordings in the house of Jack Benny and The Shadow and The War of the Worlds broadcast and Lum and Abner and things like that. So Suspense and Lights Out. So I grew up with those things and, never needed convincing that radio was an amazing, amazing medium and a landscape of the imagination. Mm-hmm. And then I grew up, trying to do things for the stage and for screen and for in print. And you're right. Sometimes it is like beating your head on a wall. And or we can just write our own stuff, perform it ourselves, and put it out there. And lo and behold, there are people who love it and quote our lines back to us.
I know. It's so crazy. I listened to a lot of BBC radio. That was how I kind of got into the whole audio thing, was listening to streaming BBC on my computer.
Yeah.
And then I found Alice Isn't Dead, which is a wonderful podcast. Yeah. And that really kind of opened my eyes to the possibility of narrative audio drama. I wasn't really into podcasts that much. I didn't know that much about it. Discovered that a few years ago, and it was a couple years ago, and thought, oh man, this is awesome. This is such a great medium. It's not a difficult one to do. There's lots of tools out there to help you. And good Lord, if you need help, the audio fiction or audio podcast community is incredible. I cannot believe how wonderful these people are. They're amazing.
You said it. Yeah.
It's amazing to me. But there's the thing that really stunned me, I think, about all of this is the very strong connection between creator and listener. It feels very personal. And maybe that's because we have these social channels. We have the Discord channel with Podcast Junkie. We have all these opportunities to engage with our audience, but there is a very strong connection between creator and listener. And partly it's the listener experience of, I'm imagining this myself. I am engaged in this process. I am part of this creative process. I'm not just a passive consumer of this whole story. And I think that enriches that connection in a very unique way that doesn't exist in other mediums.
It does feel that way, doesn't it?
It feels much more intimate.
Yeah. Maybe intimate is the word. I can't remember the last time that I wrote anything for stage or screen that has brought me so many people that I didn't know, sending me email and tweets and so on, and saying, "Wow, I love that. We're more. Let's have more of that." Or
Yeah.
I especially love the part where I'm wondering if those questions. That has never happened to me before, and I've been doing this for an embarrassingly long period of time. So, well, let's keep doing it.
Yeah. Deal.
Yeah.
I think that's
Excellent.
great. Let's do that.
I'm I'm
It's
I,
fascinating.
I'm relieved to find that there isn't a planned endpoint for Oz 9. I mean, because I just hope it will go on forever.
Well,
There's an infinite number of stories possible.
I have to admit, this is, for someone who has been in the work world and done all this thing, adulting is hard
Yeah,
and it's not a lot of fun. Sorry, all you young folks who think being an adult means that you just get to eat licorice all the time.
yeah.
Being an adult is hard and it's not a lot of fun, and you can eat licorice all the time. That is true. You kind of undermined my point there, Lee,
Yeah.
but that's fine. Anyway,
That's
carrying
not
on.
all it is.
But there's also, paying for the licorice, which is the painful part.
Yeah.
But this opportunity to tell a story, and in our case, to tell a very silly story and a very whimsical story, just feels like this wonderful gift. And to have people actually respond to it and even to some extent take some ownership of it, which I love. I am totally thrilled that people are calling themselves space monkeys. Like, carry on, space monkeys. You are one of us. I love that. So that just feels very, very special and unique. I don't know that every adult gets the opportunity to have a big, shiny, fun toy like this. So,
Right? Are we not the luckiest people in the world?
in the universe,
In the universe, perhaps.
given
Yeah.
where we're
Yeah.
currently floating.
That's right. There's that ice machine again.
Yeah.
That's my that's my sign to sign off because it's been an hour and if I hadn't looked at my clock I would not have realized that because I could talk with you until you tell me to go away.
Well, we will have an opportunity to talk at great length in April.
Yes, we can say that now, can't we?
We can say that now.
Yeah, we're out and proud. We'll say more about that then.
So in April 25th here in Seattle, Washington, we are hosting a live show of several different podcasts, all gathering together. So help me if I forget anybody, but it's Ninth World Journal,
Right.
Oz 9, Relativity,
Yes.
Moonbase Theta Out, and Sage and Savant, with the special guest appearance by Girl in Space.
Okay, I was going to say you were forgetting what? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, we don't forget Sarah.
No.
We love Sarah.
And she's the only one of this bunch that I've met in person, so
Me too.
it's kind of fun. How about that?
Yeah.
But you're right. As you texted me the other day, we've got to figure out a way to get some of us in a room together just to talk about writing. Just because, because I wish that I had the ability or the mindset, whatever it is, to fly by the seat of the pants as you do, and I think so brilliantly, and I literally can't.
Well, the grass is always greener, honey.
Well, I guess so.
I'd be so much happier if I could plot this out and have an idea and it didn't depend on the planets aligning when I sit down to write. Well, thank you for Relativity because honestly, I can't even remember how I stumbled across it. I think probably in the Discord channel.
Yeah.
But it is one of my very favorite things.
Oh, bless your heart. Well, thank you for your support and your enthusiasm, and thank you for Oz 9, which has given me a lot of merry laughs. A lot of, as somebody in the Podcast Junkie Discord was saying, almost those moments where you almost run off the road because you're laughing and not watching what you're doing.
That's right.
Anyway, so for any Relativity listeners who don't know what the hell we're talking about, how do they find Oz 9?
We are on most podcatchers, the usual, and also at oz-9.com.
Yeah, where there's lots of groovy art and some fun information about the show. And who is, as a cartoonist, I got to ask, who is that artist who's done this?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. His name is Lucas Elliott. He's
Yeah.
in Alaska, and he is amazing. He did two of the cast members. He did their wedding portrait, which is fabulous. It's so cool. It even has their dog in it. It's just gorgeous and super cool. And when we were looking for somebody, I said, we got to have good artwork. The writing's going to be terrible. We got to have good artwork. So Richard said,
Wow.
our Leet actually suggested Lucas, and he's been fantastic. He's incredibly professional. He's got a great sense of humor. We said, okay, we have this character who's an AI. She sounds like a Dickensian orphan.
Yeah.
Go.
Go. Yeah. Okay.
And
Now older.
yeah, exactly. Now make her a little taller,
Yeah.
so it's not quite so creepy, and we're
Right.
good. So yeah,
Well,
we lucked
yeah.
out.
And when people see and fall when they've heard the show and they can fall in love with those cartoon likenesses, they can also buy enamel pins of them now,
Yeah.
which are things of beauty. So, Shannon, this has been so much fun. Thank you for taking time out of your evening.
No, thank you for asking. This has been
And
fabulous.
I will see you in Seattle.